All right, greetings, everyone. Welcome to another UBC forum. We are a community organization made up of individuals from a variety of organizations in the community. We come from various backgrounds, and we do these workshops throughout the year. Usually starting off in February with the workshop. For the most part, usually it's the one on science by Kamal Siddiqui. Make sure that we're up on science and what's going on with that. And then we also um, uh, continue this until September. Usually September is our last one, which ends with our tribute, our annual tribute to John Oluniru Coltrane. And then in addition to that, at the end of the year, we are key members of the DC Kwanzaa Planning Committee, and we play a big role in the publication of the citywide Kwanzaa calendar, as well as organizing several programs, including the first night, the last night, and some in between. So we try to fill in the gaps in the community where work needs to get done. This is a work-based organization, and we're always looking for new members. If you want to, be part of the work, a lot of work to be done. We try to be the connective tissue in terms of the things that happen in the community that are community-based. Everybody's busy with their specific focus, so we come together to help be that connective tissue. And these forums are to address issues that are not being addressed enough, oftentimes in our community, especially in the conscious Pan-African community. And some of our members are here. Myself, Dr. Kalechi Gwyn, we have Baba Imam Mukumba, who will be the host for the night. We have Baba Rasafiq as well, and I'm sure other members will be joining in as the program goes on. So without further ado, let me introduce Baba Rasafiq so he can lead us with libation. We are of the firm understanding that we are spiritual beings on the physical journey, and our community is broader than the ones that we see. So we want to make sure that we invite our ancestors, the ones that especially the ones that are supportive of the work that we do, to be part of what we do and to give us their energy, so that we're moving with their power and with their energy, and with them we cannot lose. So let me call Baba Rasafiq to give us libation.
Sante Sana, Baba Kalechi. I want to say Jumbo, greetings, Arigani to everyone on our call tonight. We certainly appreciate you joining us tonight for this very important topic that we're going to discuss this evening. So divine, it's always customary for us to pay tribute to the ancestors, to the Creator, to the Orishas, and give thanks for allowing us to be here tonight and to carry on our work in the community. So divine spiritual blessings of peace, love, power, joy, happiness, optimal health, and cosmic African vibrations in the spirit of our topic tonight, epidemic of violence in our community. We're certainly concerned about the devastating effect that that's having on our community, our people, and the stability, safety, and psyches of our people. This is very important topic. So we appreciate you coming and joining us tonight. So we want to pay tribute to Almighty God, the Creator, Lord of the universe, to the elders, to the ancestors, to the Orishas. And we want to lift up the members of our family, those who have transitioned, So we first want to call out the names of those members of our family who have joined the elders and the ancestors in continuing their work in the spirit world. So this time we want to name those ancestors who have, in our families, who have left us. So let's say, Mama Pearl Daniels, Baba Otis Daniels, Brother Hashim Daniels, and I would appreciate if those of you in attendance would call out the names of your ancestors who have left us and transitioned on to the higher world.
Okay, Henry and Coretta Barkham.
Billy George,
Evo, Ashe,
Salone Wittenberg, Reverend Dewey Wittenberg, Alan E. Price,
Ashe,
Ashe,
Olivia Davis,
Ashe,
Josephine Edenstone,
John and Georgia Anna Barkham.
Ashe,
Donna Agent,
Harry and Viola Warren.
Ashe,
Maybelle and Joseph McKee.
Ashe. So now we can call out those elders who have served us well in the community and have left us a wonderful legacy. Individuals like Brother Malcolm X, El Haj Malik Esabaz, Marcus
Ashe,
Garvey,
Ashe,
Ida B.
Ashe.
Wells, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Dermot
Ashe,
Smith,
Ashe,
Ashe,
Barbara Rafo,
Ashe.
Ashe,
Mhm.
Mama Nia Kaumba,
Yes,
yeah,
Ashe, Baba Aminifu Harvey,
yes.
Ashe,
Ashe,
Murray McLeod Bethune,
Ashe,
Paula
Mama
Coleman.
Bernice Johnson Regan,
Yes,
Nebo,
yes, yes,
Ashe,
yes, yes. John Henry Clark,
Ashe,
and we can't forget Dr. Renoko Rashidi.
Ashe, Baba Duno Tariq,
Yes,
Ashe,
Baba Lasana Mac.
yes.
Yo,
Can't forget
Ashe,
Baba Lasana.
Nelson and Willie Mandela, Malcolm X,
Yes,
Ashe,
Betty Shabazz,
Ashe,
Dr. King and Coretta Scott King,
Ashe.
Ashe,
Megger and Merlene Evers.
yes, Ashe,
Ashe, Sheila Jackson Lee, who recently departed.
Yes.
Ashe,
Mm-hmm. Imhotep.
Ashe,
Ashe,
Mm-hmm.
Teresa Lumumba,
Duchess Cress Welsing.
yes, Ashe,
Yes.
Ashe, and her
Yes.
sister, Lauren
Ashe.
Crest Love.
Mm-hmm.
Frederick Douglass.
Ashe,
Ashe,
Mm-hmm.
Thurgood
Charles-
Marshall,
Edmund Banneker.
Ashe,
Ashe,
George Washington Carver, Doctor,
Yes. The Wizard.
Ashe,
Yeah. Bob Ngoma.
Ashe,
Nebo,
Mm-hmm. Marina Suma.
Ashe,
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 Amos
Baba I.J. Akoto.
Ashe,
Ashe, John Ruth Coltrane.
Ashe, Dr. Amos Wilson, I think it was saying.
Yes.
Ashe,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um,
Dr. Carter G. Woodson,
Mm-hmm.
Ashe. So we want to give thanks to all of our ancestors who served us well, who've left us with a beautiful legacy, continue to give us strength and vision and patience and prosperity. We thank Almighty God for continuing to bless us with all the wonderful blessings that have been bestowed upon us. Give us the strength to carry on. We pray that our topic tonight will have some impact on those who are in attendance and on our entire community.
Mm-hmm.
We must stop this violence. We must bring peace and civility in our communities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, peace and blessings to all of us here tonight. Sante Sana
Yeah, bro.
coming forward tonight, and may we have a wonderful and beautiful program tonight. All praises are due. Peace and blessings. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, bro.
Sante Sana.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Baba Razafiq, for that wonderful intro, libation,
Skito.
acknowledging the ancestors, those whose shoulders we still stand on and we will continue to stand on as we grow. And one day we'll become the ancestors as well.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, let's get started, y'all. Give thanks for everyone online who with us tonight. We thank you for coming out to share with us today. What I'm going to do real quick is give a quick overview of what we'll be doing tonight, things that we'll be covering. We'll be addressing the 3 areas of great concern when it comes to violence. That's the root causes of violence, the warning signs and symptoms of violence, and the solutions of violence. And we'll have 3 very key wise people lined up to address these 3 topics. And we'll also hear from Dr. Kakaya Patterson, who will talk a little about the street code, something that I think he introduced it during Kwanzaa this past year. At least that was the first time I've heard about it, and he passed it out about the street code. We hear from him. And we'll also be reviewing a report that came out in 2021, the Gun Violence Problem Analysis Summary Report by the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. I'm just going to read a few little topics in that report. Very timely report, give you a lot of details about exactly what is going on with this and who and why and the victims and suspects and all of that, little information about all that. So it's going dark. So these are the areas that we'll be covering tonight. And we will also be discussing United Black Community and myself, led by myself. We'll be talking about the symptoms of violence. And we have Dr. Horton speaking on the solutions of violence, and Brother wow, you got the name. Baba Hanif Martin, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, bro.
He's going to lead us in a discussion on the root causes of violence. I told him he had about 15 minutes, but he felt that was too much time for him. So, but anyway, he'll lead that discussion and we'll pick up anything that he may have left out of. So let's get started with Baba Hanif real quick. I see him over there getting his headsets and something on there. You muted, Bob.
You got to unmute, Bob.
Yeah, you mute. There you go.
Greetings and salutations to everyone. I hope everyone is well. It's been a long time since I've seen some of your faces, and it feels good to see you.
You got to speak up, Bob.
Speaking a little too low,
You gotta
Baba
speak up.
Hanif.
Can you hear me better? Oh, what's going on here? How about now?
That's a little better.
A little bit better? Okay.
Yeah.
As I was saying, it's good to see some of your faces. I haven't seen your faces in a long time.
So still not well.
Oh,
yeah, the volume is low. If you can speak up a little louder, that'd be great.
All right, I'm having problems with my computer, so I have to apologize to you all. You still can't hear me?
We
We
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
We can hear you, Baba.
Okay. Let me talk as loud as I possibly can.
That's fine right there.
Right there? Okay, good.
Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. For those
Good
that don't-
evening.
For those that do not know me, my name is Hanif Martin. I'm also using Joseph A. Martin Jr., which is my slave name. We all know what slave names are. If we had not been brought to this country, we would not have these names. I've been asked briefly to give my personal opinion about my beliefs on what are some of the causes of black on black violence. I believe that a lot of it, many of the reasons, well, let me say this, there are many reasons why. There is no just one reason. Many reasons are the causes, and many reasons are going to be the solutions to our problem. Poverty, unemployment, racial inequalities, self-hatred, all of these things contribute to the fact that we are killing each other, hurting each other, not respecting each other, not seeing each other as decent human beings. We look at each other as targets instead of family. And this started a long time ago, as you all know. In 1969,
We lost you, Baba.
In 1969, the director of the FBI said the threat to America is the unification of the Negro.
That's what he said.
But he wasn't the first one to start that concept. Willie Lynch and the Lynch papers talked about dividing blacks, taking a strong black and making him overseer of the others. And if he's not mean enough to the others, then get rid of him violently and replace him with somebody else. This created the attitude that we are nothing. Everything black is bad. Black ball, 8 ball, everything bad is black. So we've learned to hate ourselves and everything about ourselves. We don't know who we are, what we have done in the past, or what we have accomplished. My question to a lot of people is, what made us strong enough to go through slavery and still be here in the numbers that we're here in now? Wherever it was from what we gained at home in Africa. The initial coming over here, we were strong enough to do things, to survive this madness. No other race of people on the face of the earth that call themselves slaves have gone through what we have gone through for 400 years. The loss of our culture, the loss of our religion, the loss of our languages, all of those things. And all of those things made us who we are today. Now remember, we also don't have the money to buy planes, trains, and pay people to go around the world to bring in large quantities of drugs here in this country. We don't have the money to go out and buy millions of dollars of guns and bring them into the cities and communities and sell them cheap to our youngsters out here. We didn't create the laws that enable a person to commit a crime to another black person and get 6 months and then go to certain areas in Northwest or Uptown or wherever in other communities and get a life sentence. We didn't create the situation where we talk about the new prison that they're creating, prison for profits, and then encouraging the youngsters to make songs calling our sisters bees and our brothers niggers and encouraging violence so that they can fill those prisons. I think all of these things and then some contribute to where we are today. Now, in a meeting yesterday, Dr. Orton mentioned that we have to have more research, and I do agree with that. We need more research, but we have to be concerned about the people that do the research too, because this country in its fabric is racist. It's a part of their fabric. It's a part of inbred fabric. And we're not going to change that until we come together as one and first of all, create our own political party so we can vote as a party. instead of giving out votes to people who really don't care about us in the first place. You know, I had a whole lot to say, a whole lot that I wrote down, but I'm forgetting all of that because it hurts me to see what we're doing now. They've taken the trades out of schools. They've taken religion out of schools. They've done all that they can to infect our children with all kind of madness. You know, we have behavior disorders going on. You know, people are not seeing doctors the way they should be. They're not being diagnosed the way they should be. And we're eating food that's been contaminated in order to condemn us to poverty and violence. I believe that all these are factors in here, all of them. I don't know what the solution is, but I pray that we find it soon. I moved out of Washington, D.C. because I did not want to go to jail, because I was being confronted left and right by craziness. We have to do something. I have children, grandchildren that I love. So this meeting is important to me. If there are solutions, please let me know what they are, and I'll be happy to help in solving those problems. That's all I have to say. I hope you heard it.
Okay, we thank you for those kind words there, Brother Hanif.
Yeah,
And
bro.
you gave us a lot to think about. You talked about the drugs and guns, the music, the food, and the things that we consume, and all those things have to be addressed, because if we don't, then we get what we get. I forgot to mention also that we're going to talk a little bit about the survey that was asked, the results of the survey that was done a few months ago. We asked people to do the survey and give us their suggestions on violence, root causes, solutions, and the warning signs of violence. So right now, we're going to talk a little bit about the warning signs of violence. Now, what I'm about to read does not necessarily mean that if a person has any one of these particular areas of concern that they're going to go out and commit violence. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does mean that if they're involved in at least 3 or 4 or more of these things that I'm about to read, then that's some real serious concern. Number one, these are the warning signs. When you see people who are exempling these symptoms, we got to really be have a good look at that person and the outcome of that individual. Uncontrolled anger, sometimes people in a rage, arrogance, declining school performance and attendance, greed, selfishness, and someone who's very self-centered, extreme jealousy, lack of respect for others, lying, no employment or having trouble keeping a job, always having negative thoughts about everybody and everything, and negative thoughts and attitude, unforgiving, no compassion for others, and sometimes it's mental illness, unhealthy relationships. And some of the UBC members can chime in on, some of the things that I just mentioned previous and after. You can feel free to chime in. Drug, alcohol abuse is a big problem. Lack of empathy for others. And that person also may have been a victim of violence themselves. So these are some of the symptoms or some of the warning signs of someone who's about to commit to violence. Okay. Now, also, we said we would read a few lines from the report that was put out in 2021. If you haven't seen this report, you can Google, I don't know, we don't have it in the chat, but the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform, and this report will come up. It was produced December 2021, and it gives you a real good analysis of who and what is really going on with this crime here in DC. And I'm going to read a few lines, a few pages, not pages, but a few little paragraphs and sentences from the report. This gun violence analysis problem dealt with the 341 homicides that occurred in DC from January the 1st, 2019 to December the 31st, 2020. It was 341 homicides in the city during that period. And there were 522 non-fatal shootings that also occurred during that same period. Now, who were some of the majority of the people who did all this? The report goes on to say that 96% of the victims and suspects of homicides and non-fatal shootings were Black people. 96% of all of the killings in this city, 341, were Black people, African people here in this city. The ages of these young people, 18 to 34, were the ages of the people who did most of the killings. And the median age was 29.5, and the suspects was 29.8. Now, we also, they did that report was, did it on race. They did the numbers of people who were victims and suspects from that period of time that we mentioned. They did information about the race of all of the people involved in that. And of that 96% of us who were suspects and victims, the white population, the victims was 1.7% of the white population, and 0.8% of the suspects were white. Now that's a figure that we really gonna have to look at and take a look at, brothers and sisters. It's not to say that white people are not violent, but I mean, 0.8%, that's almost zero white people killing anybody in this city. And we are the main perpetrators of these crimes, mainly our youth. And Brother Hanif mentioned that the music that we listen to, the food that we eat, they all play a role. And as he also mentioned, there's not one thing that we could say caused these problems. But according to this report, real quick, they gave some reasons for all of these killings, the 341 killings that occurred during that period of time. 72 were personal disputes. 38 was group-related conflict. 35 was instant dispute. That means you might be a road rage or stepping on somebody's foot or disrespecting somebody in the restaurant or a bar or whatever. Then there's drug-related dispute, 32%. Robbery was 27, not percent, I'm sorry, but 27. Domestic violence was 19. Retaliation and revenge was 16. Drug and robbery was 10. Mental illness was 10. Internal group conflict, 8. Child abuse, neglect, 3. Other, 4. And 67 was unknown of that 341. And they also broke it down as to where did most of these 341 homicides occur in the city. The primary sections of the city, and I know most of you know, Commerce Heights, Anacostia, what they call the Highland areas, Mississippi Avenue, Alabama Avenue, then Good Hope Road, now Marionberry. Is it Boulevard or Place?
Boulevard, I believe.
Okay. That's in the southeast area, also Southern Avenue area.
Marionberry Avenue.
Marionberry Avenue. Okay.
Avenue, okay.
Yeah. Well, the Ward 8, as we know, is where most of the killings took place in this city during that period. In Northeast, most of the killings took place along Benning Road, Trinidad area. A lot of killings went on over there. Northwest, the Shaw area, Columbia Heights, Petworth. A lot of killings there, and they broke it down on this particular map. If you get this report, it'll give you really good, keen information about what's really going on. And they felt that a lot of these robberies, not robberies, but murders, homicides, and we know that homicide or killing somebody with a gun or a knife, that's the most extreme case of violence when someone dies. And that's what this particular report covers. But they felt that a lot of these killings were also based on this social media slight, people on social media. Okay. And they also mentioned the music that they listen to. And narcotics played a big role. They said that narcotics played a huge role in a lot of these killings in DC as well. And be mindful that this is not just DC, but you can relate the same thing to Baltimore, Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, New Orleans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not just solely DC. But these are a few of the little things I wanted to share in this report. But like I said, if you want to get this report, one of the members of the Council of Elders sent me this report. Barbara Tiba Kopic sent me this report dealing with violence in the community and what we can do about the violence. Patterson with us as of yet?
Yeah, bro. He's with us.
Okay. Well, we're gonna also have a question and answers, and the community can share their concerns as well after we have the last presenter, Dr. Orton. I forgot to mention that up front. Go ahead, Baba Kalesh.
Yeah, but I just wanted to add before we bring the next person on, which I didn't really hear in the report, is the connection between violence and poverty. Where you have a community like DC, and you can compare the percentage of people who live in poverty that are Black, right? In other words, if you look at the statistics and see in DC, racially speaking, who are the folks in poverty, you'll find that 95% of them or 99% of them are Black. You can correlate that to the folks who are violent. So, it's easy to correlate it with race, because that's sort of what people, sort of jump at. But if you go to any poor community in the United States, let's just not just isolate to Baltimore and Detroit and majority Black cities. Go to these rural white communities where they're all white and they're all suffering from meth and all types of violence going on there every day. They don't even call that white on white violence, but they're just as violent as other Black people who are in impoverished communities. So it's the poverty. There's a much greater link to between violence and poverty than anything else, and that's globally. You go to the poorest parts, the most impoverished, when people are most desperate, people are most likely to look to escape. People are most likely to lack emotional equipment needed to deal with conflict. People who have little or nothing to lose. You put that together, you're going to have violence. And if young people are given hope and given opportunity to feed themselves and have prosperous families and children and have opportunities to raise and become upstanding men and women, and they have the equipment to not be in poverty based on what's available to them, what's being created to make sure that they're not in poverty. If you create that structure, you end the violence. That's it. I mean, and that's something that's it's been known for a long time, but we forget. We make it seem like it's this other thing, but that's it. It is poverty, and it's desperation and anger that comes from poverty, which is understandable. So yeah, you find the poorest people in DC are Black. So those are the ones that are going to be committing crimes and victims of crimes. That's not saying that it's because they're Black. It's because they're poor. Those statistics between poverty and violence are literally side by side, and we need to recognize that, especially when we talk about these communities as if there's something innately violent about them. No, there's something that's been put there designed to maintain poverty in them, and that continues the cycle of violence, and it destroys the family structures and makes hope a thing that folks don't have the luxury of because of that poverty.
And
that was well said. Well said.
I just want to say one thing, and especially now that poverty is being criminalized more and more, where we're locking up people for being poor. My son called it, what do they call it, when you just lock up people because they don't have. So that's an issue too. I mean, they're locking up people now because they don't have homes. So there's a lot of anger, and I see it even with the youngest children. And a lot of anger, and it's coming out in the behavior of preschool children. So something that we really have to take seriously.
Okay. Now, Baba Glacier, what you said was so on point. One of the survey we got back from the community, community members said that poverty was the driving force behind a lot of this violence. So yeah, and I'm gonna read a few lines that he wrote on the report that he sent back. So yeah, that was right on point there. Okay, Baba Kakaya, well, we invited him to speak about the street code. He's going to give us the history, the purpose, and the use of the street code. So, Baba, you got the floor, brother.
Thank you so much,
Dr. Patterson, Dr. Kokaya Patterson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, my brother Imamu. And just want to thank UBC for putting this program on. There's so many things that have been talked about. I've been working in this anti-violence movement since about 1974. I'm a part of the Alliance of Concerned Men, Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters, my big brother and the godfather of the anti-violence movement in DC, Brother Al Malik Farrakhan. Also, the African Holistic Health Association, which sponsors the Acupuncture Detox Specialist Collective that goes into the violent communities on a regular basis, which is I've been doing that for the last 40 or 50 years. Before getting to the street code, 3 things. One, everyone please note, hashtag street code, hashtag street code. The next thing is adscollective.org. And the only reason why I'm saying adscollective.org is because we go to the drug corners on Tuesdays, on Saturdays. We go to 7th and T Street where there's a drug quarter, and we are 30 feet from the drug dealers and the drug users, and we're doing free acupuncture. We go to a park called Jurassic Park on the corners of Martin Luther King Avenue and Malcolm X Boulevard with Imam Ali from Masjid Rashidan. And we treat maybe 50 people, alcoholics, drug addicts, thugs, gangsters, drug dealers, abused women, children, homeless people that we treat at this site at 7th and T. On Wednesdays, these are all the people that we're talking about on this call. On Wednesdays, we go to Southeast again, and we go to a women and children's facility where there are teenage mothers who've been beaten up by their boyfriends who are 15 and 16 and 17 years old. One day we was there and I was talking to a young girl and she was 17 years old, pregnant. And I offered her the acupuncture seeds and she denied it. We were leaving and her boyfriend found the facility, snatched her off the bus and was beating her down in the street. This is a pregnant woman. So me and the brother that was together, we run out. They come and get us. We run out and he has a gun. So we rolling up on him trying to get to the girl, but he's got a gun. So one of the sisters that was a part of my crew, Sister Azira, walks through everybody and grabs the sister, and I'm hollering, hey, what are you doing? And grabs the sister, and God was with her and said, brother, you're not taking her, and snatched that sister away from this brother, and he turned and ran, now, but God was with her. And of course, I told her, don't ever do that again. But these are the kinds of situations that you all are talking about when you talk about poverty. We just got finished 2 days ago. One of my mentees, Kaylin, was on the way home, and it was an 11-year-old sitting on the corner at 11 o'clock at night. She engages him, finds out he's one of 7 children being taken care of by the oldest child, who was 17 years old. And we've been working with them for the last few days. So we do that every day. We got so many people that we're working with. Last but not least, my sister works at a youth holding facility. And that youth holding facility is where a lot of our young people are that we need to work with, along with other facilities in the Washington, D.C. area. But what we got to know is that these are the young people that we're seeing on the newspaper, young people who are committing carjackings, young people who are committing shootings and murderers and things of that nature. They are 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17 years old, some of which we go and we talk to and we counsel on a regular basis. Everything that you all are talking about is the reasons why these young people are where they are. Everybody on this call is choir, so I'm talking to the choir here. We know that this has been going on for 30, 40, 50 years, and it's culminated to this. We didn't know about juvenile diabetes, but it's here. We didn't think that young people at 13 years old, I would be talking to them, and they would never see the street from 13 to 50, 60 years old. They're going to get life sentences, 30, 40, 50-year sentences, and they 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. And when I talk to them, they got circles around their eyes because they can't sleep. They don't have any of what you all are talking about, emotional maturity. They don't know how to communicate. They do not and have never had direction from mothers or fathers, because with this crew, the great-grandfathers are in jail. The grandfathers are in jail. They're dead or in jail on drugs. The grandfathers, the great-grandfathers, then the fathers of these 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old boys are in jail or dead or on drugs. The uncles are gone. They're dead or in jail or on drugs. The big brothers are gone. The older cousins are gone. The uncles, all of the men in the family in our community, let's be clear what community we're talking about, not the middle class. We're not talking about us and above us. We're talking about the people that we're talking about. Those are poor people who don't have any money, who don't have any job. So when we talk about poverty, this is something that we've been dealing with forever. The unemployment rate with us is still 34%, almost 40%. Every 40 people out of 100 are not working. And that's been going on forever. That has never, ever changed. But what the difference is from when I found the gun at age 15 in Southeast Washington on a school playground as they ditch and throw guns all through our neighborhoods now, and they've been doing that forever and ever. I had a pistol, and they used to call me Pistol Pete, but the pistol didn't work. You know, it had one bullet in it, and I wouldn't even shoot it because I said, well, if I shoot it, I ain't gonna have no bullet. This is back in the 60s, early 60s. Now, anybody can get a gun. If you had a gun back then, you were thought to be crazy and insane. Something's wrong with this guy. He got a gun. Nobody would be around him. But with everything that you all said about the media and how the media has developed, again, I'm talking to the choir here. Y'all know what I'm talking about. How the media has developed and has gotten so scientific and so insidious that we are in a black hole, that we are deep, deep, deep in a hole where, in fact, I'm having to rumble with 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, because once you're 18, you go to the big jail. And you might weigh 90 pounds. You might be, 5'4", and you're going in there with grown men. These are the situations and the circumstances that our young boys and girls are dealing with. We have young girls who are in there. When I talk to young boys and girls in some of these facilities, some of the young girls are rougher than the boys. We have Muslims in there. We have Christians in there who are totally confused about the religious principles that they've adopted because they're looking for something. They join a group or they join some kind of movement that can excite them and make them feel better, in these places. So we take books and, Bibles and Qurans and, everything. But you all know me. I'm going to slip some hooga booga, some African stuff up in there too, as best as we can, in the process, as long as they allow me to do those kinds of things. So Mutulu Shakur asked his son, Tupac, my little nephew, Pac, and Mutulu's my brother. And he asked Pac, he said, man, what is this thug life on your stomach? It said thug life, And he said, oh, Pop, that's the street code, so forth and so on. He said, no, Pop, what is it? Does this thug life on your stomach mean you robbing old people? Does it mean that, you're robbing the candy store in the neighborhood? Or, what does it mean? He said, no, Pop, it's about principle. He said, well, we got to write that up. So Mutulu Shakur got locked up in 79 before he get it done, called 3 or 4 gang members in New York and said, hey, man, I need a thug code. So you all can Google Thug Life Code or Code for Thug Life by Tupac Shakur, but it was written by a brother. He's an imam now, but at 18 years old, he's head of a gang in New York, and he got 5 other gang members to get with him to write what the code for Thug Life. Fast forward, first time, and he says to me, Kakai, I know you're working with violence. All of us are around the country. We need to take a look at the Thug Code. So I got the Thug Code, and he said, rewrite it. So we rewrote the Thug Life Code that was written by Imam Bashir, is his name now, him and 5 other gangsters, 18-year-old guys that were running gangs in Washington, D.C. They themselves, all of them, winded up going to jail for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, some of them. And they're back out now and are doing the anti-violence work. We are with a group that we meet nationally because it's going on in Detroit, DC, and everywhere else. So we got a little plug that we're building, and I'll, of course, share that with everybody here. So in rewriting the Thug Code, because the Thug Code had some profanity in it, it had some things in there about the B word that, in the street, and this is true, I was in the street, that in the street, that if you are a B, meaning if you're acting like a sister who's loose, whorish, whatever the language is that was used in the street, that it's okay for them to call you a B. Well, we changed that. We said, no matter what a woman is doing, you cannot call her that name. My mother told me that it was a drunk lady in the gutter that you go and you help her up and you say, ma'am, yes, ma'am, may I help you up out of the gutter? I had to kick one of my mentees out of my training program because he refused to treat a street person that was dirty, and I said, these are the people that we have to deal with. These are the people that we're talking about on this call when you talk about poverty, lack of education, lack of jobs, no fathers, no family. And it's the family structure that we know that has been completely destroyed. All of these guys and these young boys that I talk to don't have men to talk to them. So we took the street code. I'm sorry, we took the code for thug life and we rewrote it. We changed the concept, we changed the whole thing, and we named it street code. Now, the street code, everybody can go to hashtag street code and get a copy of it. Right now, it's probably about 30 something things listed on the street code, and the street code speaks to the same code that I lived by when I was in the streets. And that code said that Kokai, and my name was Pistol Pete at the time, Kokai, if you're going to sell drugs, you cannot sell them to pregnant women. Kokai, if you're going to steal, you can't steal in your neighborhood. What are you saying, Kokai? Go steal in other neighborhoods? I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about my neighborhood. I'm concerned about the Black community that's already in a deficit. We already have food deserts. We don't have what we need. So we're put in the position to steal from each other, to rob from each other. So that's been heightened now. And it's gotten to the point where, as you all talked about, and he talked about, Imam, who talked about negative thoughts and, no compassion and unhealthy relationships and alcohol and no empathy. He talked about the media, all of these things that we know contributed for the last 50, 60 years, to what we've been dealing with. We can remember, those of us on this call, when you couldn't watch a commercial where you saw bras and panties. You couldn't watch a music video where you saw people twerking butts and titties and stuff, hanging out. But again, this is relative to the culture that we live in, as Dr. Welsing talks about it. And Dr. Welsing talks about those 9 areas that they control. The young Black people that we're talking about dealing with, they know nothing about those 9 areas. They don't even know that they exist. They can't. If you told them what they was, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. So we have a responsibility, as y'all know, I've always talked about the importance of getting our information down to the grassroots people, meaning that we have to be able to break it down and explain it to them in such a way that they can get it. So the street code does that. It says on the street code, no selling drugs, to kids, no selling drugs to pregnant women. It says no shooting, and it lists all of them, y'all. It says no shooting at daycare centers, no shooting at the zoo, no shooting at the playground, no shooting at the club, no shooting at the mall. I mean, we got 90 places listed on here, and we keep adding places every week or every other week where another shooting might take place where it shouldn't take place. And again, these are young people, you all, 15, 16, 17, 18 years of age. We remember when it got bad from 30 years old, as Imamu was kicking out those statistics, 29-year-old average. No, that's blown. Ain't nobody 29 years old doing this stuff. They are old people now. You got these 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olders got the 29-year-olders scared. They won't even say nothing to these young people, and it's only because the young people have no foundation. They can't read. They can't write. I asked the young boy to sign his name. He said, I don't know how to do that. And when he signed his name, he printed his name, and it looked like a kindergarten person. You know how the letters, some of them bigger than the others, some of them lopsided, and it was all, each one of them. And if 10 of them signed, all of them were like that, So these are the issues that we're having to deal with. One, a holistic approach that you all hear me talk about all the time, putting the street code out in the community. They say, well, Kakai, who's going to make sure that this happens? Who enforces, no selling drugs to kids, no shooting at daycare centers, no shooting at playgrounds and picnics and cookouts and things like that? The street will enforce it. This is why we to date have put out 60,000 flyers throughout Washington, D.C., and it ain't enough. It's a scratch on the surface in terms of where you might ride around town and see some of the street code posters, up on the walls in Southeast and Northeast. We're raising money. We put a GoFundMe together to be able to fund, because we want to put at least 100,000 flyers in each section of Washington, D.C. This is how bad it is, family, in terms of getting this information out. I'm going to close with this. I want to invite everyone on this call to join the ADS Collective and the African Holy Scalp Association. When we go out to the street and we talk to the young people, the drug addicts, the alcoholics, the abused women. We got so many abused women that come and sit in the chair and we do acupuncture, and they just bust out crying because of all of the trauma and the hurt that they've held in, and the acupuncture just releases it, and they bust out crying, right there in the street. So we need brothers for security, but we also need the sisters to come and help us set up and maintain as we're actually doing the treatments on the corner of 17th. Sister Lydia and a few other people, have come around to support us, from the Pan-Africanist community, but we need more people to come out so they can see us in this process. So that's Saturday from 12 to 2 on 7th and T Street Northwest, right on the side of the bank where all the drug addicts stand at. That's on Saturday. We also invite you to come to Potomac Gardens, where they just had 2 killings last week. We've been going over there for 3 months, and we set up in the middle of the project, in the middle of the court. We set a tent up. We set up chairs. We blast music, Tupac Shakur. We had Hakeem Babuti rolling last week. Rise Nation Rise. They was like, what is that? But we're putting those kinds of things out to educate the community. We do free acupunctures. Those mothers came out. We treat more children, because when the children get it, they're like, wow, so we treat more kids. But the drug dealers came and got treatment last week. They be standing right in the hallway selling drugs. And then they came right, wait, what y'all doing out here, man? Man, sit down, man, try some of this. So we get them involved also, because we got to turn them around, because as you all have said, we are the victims. No matter what it is that we're doing, we are the victims. It's not our fault, but it is. It's our responsibility. It is our fault. But you all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking to the choir here. So Saturday, 12 to 2, and Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30 at Potomac Gardens in Southwest Washington. So those 2 spots, we'd love for you to come. Last but not least, YSC, Youth Service Center, and y'all know Mama Jo Patterson, my sister. She runs an organization called Parent Watch, and she's constantly 24 hours a day working with these parents, but working with these children who are facing murder charges and, have been abused and they're beat down. The girls have been just raped and, these are young people. And my sister is there, and she's allowed the ADS Collective and the African Holistic Health Association to have a place there every Sunday from 12 to 2 o'clock, and we do free acupuncture to the community, and I do a free health lecture every Sunday from 12 to 2. On some Sundays, my sister allows us to go up and we share and do seminars and things like that with the young people, so we have that connection. So I'm inviting all of you all to come and join the work that we're doing and to come and sit with us. Also on Saturdays at we call it Jurassic Park, but the park at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Avenue. We're there on Saturday. So, I'll send all of the information to Imamu of the places where we are, where we need brothers to come and stand with us, for security, as to communicate and talk to the people in the community. They love to talk. They're waiting for us, to talk with them. I was dancing on the corner last week with a couple of them at 17. We was out there jamming. After they got the needles, they got up and was starting to dance and stuff, So again, it's a real humanistic kind of approach that we have. We're going right into the depth of the community, as you all know me to do. And I'm inviting you guys to come out and work with us, and, go to #StreetCode. Please duplicate it, as well as make a contribution to us, as we're constantly making bumper stickers. We find old cardboards and make up signs. We're doing everything. We're getting ready to get some spray painting and do it up. We're going to do all kinds of stuff. But please go to #StreetCode, make a copy of it, send it to everybody, not just street people, but to everybody, so they can pass it around in the community, so the community can begin to raise this as a principled way to address the people on the street, because the violence, the drug dealing, all of that stuff, sad to say, is not going anywhere unless we, change it and do what we have to do. So thank you all so much. And when I say street, you say code. Street, code. Street, code. Code. Thank you all so much. Straight ahead.
Hey, Baba, thank you so much for that presentation, man, and the information that's so much needed, and the work that you're doing in the community. Imam Ali invited us to...
Let me just say this, Imam. I'm so sorry. Brother Dakari, I just want to thank him for the work that he's doing with you guys in the anti-violence movement. I love what he's doing, and I'm committed, as me and him have talked about, doing some things together. So, Brother Dakari, if you're on, man, thank you so much. Keep up the good work. You know, Aluta Continua.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
And
Right.
Hanif too. I'm sorry, Hanif too. Me and Hanif used to walk the hood, you know, back in the 70s, Jack. We walked the hood back in the 70s. That's my man.
Mhm.
Hey, Bo.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thank you, Amamu.
Thank you,
In
my
fact,
brother.
brother Imam Ali invited. In fact, he invited me to participate with him on MLK and Malcolm X Jurassic Park on August the 17th.
That's right.
And we all know that that's a special day of birthday of Marcus Garvey on August 17th. But that's the day we have a family reunion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be in touch with him periodically, and I told him let me know the next time, other than that date, that I could come out and share whatever I could share.
Absolutely.
And we're having an event on August the 17th too. That's been sending that information out. Anyway, we can.
Right.
Everybody will have that. Yeah.
Yes. So let us know all the information details before we leave the call tonight, Brother Dakari, please, about what you're doing on August the 17th.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work going on in the city during that time. And at the reunion, I'll be preaching and teaching to the young folks who come to the reunion about, staying straight and doing the right thing. So
that's right.
The struggle continues wherever we are.
That's right.
We have to be a voice for good, bringing good to the world. And that's good.
That's right.
Okay, give thanks. So what's the time? 8:14. We're right on time to entertain one of the other segments of violence, and that's the solutions. Brother Kakaya gave us one way that he's doing, one of the things that he's doing to bring about change in the community. And we want to hear from Dr. Orton. And before we have Dr. Orton, I would like for Baba Hanif to introduce our special guest tonight. This is our first time meeting her. Dakari told me about her when I, asked him about participating in the program here tonight. So Brother Hanif, you have the floor to introduce our special guest tonight.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I met Dr. Orton back in early 2000, I think 2001, 2002. After I realized it was, I was diagnosed with PTSD. She was my first psychiatrist that I talked to that really, really helped me. I had a very, very dramatic experience in Vietnam. There's no question. I did my share of negative things, killing and whatnot, and being a little cold. And when I got into her office, I started talking to her and I broke down. She walked over to the door and closed the door, and she grabbed my hand. We started praying. Boy, it was a weight lifted off my chest because of that prayer that she gave me. So I want to introduce to you all a very good woman, a very good teacher, a very good counselor, a very good human being, Dr. Gina Orton.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Hanif. I have to get used to calling you that because I'm still stuck on calling you Joe after so many years. It's a pleasure to meet everyone and to see your faces and to hear the efforts being made on behalf of those who are less fortunate than ourselves. We know the seriousness of the problem. We know how terrifying it is. And I believe the gentleman who just spoke was Dr. Patterson, correct? Did I have his name correct?
Yes, that's correct.
he and I met briefly at Nathaniel Mine's memorial service, and he shared with me about the street code and a little bit about the work that he's doing. And so I'm going to speak about solutions, but I'm going to circle back around to what he said, because a lot of the work that's being done has been out there for 30, 40, 50 years. And yet the problem is still, as Dr. Patterson said, extreme and is still growing. And so what happened with me, I'm a psychiatrist, and I've been a psychiatrist for over 25 years. And I worked with combat veterans, such as Hanif, wonderful experience. I worked in the prison system. I then ended up working with law enforcement and working with their PTSD, which was a very powerful experience, working with them and their families. But the violence issue just kept coming back to me and coming back to my spirit. And so as I ended my career in working with law enforcement, I got together with the group of dear friends, and Dakari and Hanif are two members of the little team that we meet every week just to discuss the problem. And we said, this is an emergency. This is all hands on deck. This is everybody. Everybody now needs to be involved. That's how bad things have gotten. So if you look at the statistics, the killing of young Black people and Black people killing Black people has been an epidemic for decades. It's amazing to me that any of us are left. And now, aside from the high homicide rates that we have had for decades, the suicide rate for African Americans has been historically very, very low for men and for women. But now, more recently, over the past decade, we're seeing not only the astronomical death rate from homicides, but now young Black children in greater numbers are killing themselves. What is going on is probably the same things that have been going on. But for me personally, I think if you add to that all of the chaos of our current society, the political negativity and the wars and the threat of climate change, and you add all of that to the poverty, the lack of education, the proliferation of drugs, and then most importantly is the proliferation of guns into our community. And that in and of itself has had its own powerful impact upon what's causing young people either to kill others or to kill themselves. And so in kind of researching and preparing for this, I also want to say that, and I don't know the gentleman's name who spoke earlier, we do have to be careful at what statistics we look at. In this society, the research that is done tends to excessively look at race rather than look at poverty, rather than look at social standing, education, resources. And what the gentleman said earlier is absolutely true. If you look at any impoverished group of people around the face of the earth, regardless of race, ethnicity, or language, you will find greater levels of violence among people that don't have food to eat, don't have a place to live, living in filth, living in degradation, don't have resources, don't have medical resources. As people rise up, as people get jobs, as people make money, as people become affluent, you'll see a diminishment of violence. However, I also want to say before I go on, that if you look at the statistics about whites in America, and if you look at white homicide rates, you will find that whites have significant violence as well in their communities. Domestic violence, mass killings. We know mass killings are on the rise dramatically in this country. And we also know that whites have a very, very significant rate of suicide. And so I always caution people to be careful that this perception that somehow because we're Black, that we're bad or that we're more violent, that really is not the reason. And we have to be careful of the research that points more to race than it does to socioeconomic status and the needs that people have. So one of the things that we've learned in the research is that people kill people who they're around, people that they're familiar with. So if you live in a Black community, you're more likely to kill a Black person. If you live in a white community, you're more likely to kill a white person. If you look at statistics about whites that are murdered, 80 to 90% of whites in America who are murdered by whites. They are not murdered by some band of Black people getting in cars and driving into white neighborhoods and killing them. That's the perception that white people have. That's the perception that we have been given. But no, for the most part, we are within our own communities killing ourselves, either killing other Blacks or committing suicide. And so I just wanted to put that out there. We also know that the research shows that people often kill in the aftermath of arguments and conflicts that arise. And that was just described very eloquently, both by Dr. Patterson and by Hanif. But because of this massive influx of guns into the community, and we're finding that upwards of 50% of households in America now have guns, it is very easy for people to think that the solution to a problem is to use a gun. It makes them feel more powerful. It makes them feel that they can handle the situation. And so we have this overwhelming use of weaponry, mostly guns, mostly handguns in the United States of America. Within our community, I don't really know how these guns are being funneled into our community, but I remember the heroin epidemic of the 70s and 80s and the crack epidemic, and I see this the same way, that guns are intentionally being funneled into our community. And if there is a way that we can involve government resources and law enforcement resources in stopping the flow, particularly of illegal weapons into our community, that would be a very, very important solution. Let me go on because I found it very, very powerful and very interesting that a lot of research has already been done. There's been decades of research. They've been talking about this stuff since the 1960s. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention. There is now the Gun Violence Archive, which is a nonprofit agency that's looking at these mass shootings and documenting. There are daily 10 or 12 mass shootings in the United States of America, where if there is 4 or more persons injured or killed, that's considered a mass shooting. The ones that we hear about are when there's 15 or 20 people. But when there are 4 or 5 people killed, or a whole family killed or wiped out in a domestic violence incident, you don't read about it in the newspaper. But there are 5 to 10 of these incidents every day. So we have the Violence Policy Center. We have the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions. We've got most recently in a few weeks ago, the Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, released the report on gun violence in America being an epidemic. We've got the National Institute of Mental Health. We've got the Congressional Black Caucus had an emergency task force on Black youth suicide and mental health. They put out a report in 2019 under the guidance of Dr. Michael Lindsay. We have the program Gun Violence and Epidemic in America that was released by ABC News in 2019 that spoke specifically about the levels of homicides related to the presence of guns in our communities, and did highlight what's happening in the Black community. I was very surprised to learn that the American Medical Association, as far back as 1995, began to talk about how violence in America was becoming an epidemic. And they have been sponsoring and supporting over 700 anti-violence programs. throughout the United States of America. Now, what I find interesting about that is I'm a physician and I didn't know about that. And so that's one of the things that I'm going to come back to, is that there are lots and lots of programs. And what we have Dr. Patterson doing with his group daily, going out there and touching people directly in the community and laying hands on them and touching them and talking with them and communicating with them. There are lots of programs throughout this country that are doing that, but it's not getting down to the grassroots level. People don't seem to be aware of them. We're not connecting to one another. We're not aware. We may have hearts that are concerned, but we sit at home. We don't know what to do. We don't know that we could go to 7th and T Street every Saturday and help Dr. Patterson, because I'm sure there are days when he might get exhausted and tired, might need someone to step in for him. It can't be just him and 5 other people. There need to be hundreds of us going out there and being available, connecting with other people in other cities, other programs. I just want to point out that just in looking up some of the programs around the country that I have just become familiar with, besides Dr. Patterson's program, there are community centers all over the country that are working on anti-violence initiatives, such as the New Settlement on Jerome Avenue in the Bronx. I just met some African-American doctors a few months ago who have set up the Hope Center in Harlem, New York, where people are being given free psychiatric care. There's a program called Safe and Sound in Hillsborough, Tampa, Florida, which was started by a gentleman to help young men that have gotten involved with gun violence. There in Washington, D.C., Nathaniel Mines, who passed away several months ago, his dynamic wellness program was supporting chess programs, and also the D.C. State Chess Federation is teaching chess to young people, to teach them how to control their emotions, how to know how to compete without getting angry and without getting violent. We know that there are boys and girls clubs. We know that there are faith-based programs out there, such as the Salvation Army program. So what I'm trying to say is, in terms of solutions, a lot of the government agencies, even the Department of Justice, which I had the opportunity to work with for a period of time, there's an Office of Violence Against Women. But all of this research and all of these programs that are going on, how do we get that information down into the streets and into the cities and to the families that are desperate and needy? And until we know about people like Dr. Patterson, who are present here in DC, who are present all over the country, and bring connectivity to those programs, that's what I think is the difference that needs to be made, is that we've got to do better at knowing who we are, where we are, and saying to those who are doing well, you've got to come out of your houses and join us in this battle. We can't continue to think, oh, it's a them versus us. We can't continue to think it's just being Black. We can't let whites continue to define how we address this problem, because they're throwing money at it, but they're also not understanding that you have to meet people at the point of their need. You have to connect with them. You have to talk with them. So this, I just want to share that this little group of us, Dakari and Hanif, and there are 2 or 3 others of us that have been meeting on a weekly basis to say, okay, we're doing well. We have jobs. We're not violent. We're not part of the problem. But if we're not part of the problem, are we part of the solution? So we put together this little group called Saving, Stop All Violence Now. And that's when we came up with the idea of taking the pictures with the signs that say Stop All Violence Now. And we also have printed up bumper stickers. And we'd like to just join that in with some of the efforts that are going on, just messaging along with the street code, along with perhaps other information brochures, giving people information. If your family's in trouble, if you've got a 17-year-old raising 5 other kids all by themselves, what are the resources that young child can go to for help? if a child is feeling like the only thing they have available to them is a gun or is a weapon, where can they go to speak to someone, to get counseling, to learn how to address the anger, the hurt, the pain, and the trauma? If a child has been beaten, sexually violated, who can they go to where they can find safety and trust and respect and be recovered? And rather than become a perpetrator, we can teach them to become a minister to other people who have suffered. I laugh sometimes because I say to people, I'm kind of a talking head, in the sense that I haven't experienced some of those experiences. But if you have, then you're the type of person who can talk to another person who's been beaten, who's been mistreated, and say, I've been there and I came out of that and I recovered from that, and so can you. So for me, the solution really becomes these types of discussions and dialogue have to be broadened. We have to get to more people. We have to talk to people like ourselves and invite them into the battle, give them tasks, give them information. We have to build a pool of resources and be able to make people available, make those resources available to people, tell people where they can go to get help. One of the things we've tossed around, the idea of declaring truce periods, where we can say, for this period of time, for 1 or 2 days, can everybody just put the guns down and perhaps meet at a particular place and have festival and have music and talk about the street code and talk about how do we make our lives better. And during those truce periods, could we bring together social workers, law enforcement, ministers, clinicians such as myself, and create little rescue teams that can do some of the same work that Dr. Patterson's teams, maybe build team interventions and have them at different locations throughout the city 7 days a week. So that's really what I really wanted to bring up in terms of that type of immediate grassroots solution. I also want to mention that many of these other government programs and the Surgeon General talked about teaching people gun safety. If you absolutely insist, do you have to have a gun in your house? Do you really have to carry a weapon? But if you absolutely have to, know something about that gun. Take a gun safety class. Take the bullets out of the weapon when you're at home so children don't have access to the gun. Get a trigger lock. Put that on the gun. Lock the gun away in a closet. Don't have it just sitting around the house. But know this important statistic. If you have a gun in your home, there's a 200% increased risk that someone in that household is going to use that gun to kill someone else. If you have a gun in your house, there is a 400% risk of someone in your family using that gun to kill themselves. And so you think you have a gun because you're going to protect your family from a burglar. That's really highly unlikely. More than likely, someone in your family is going to get hurt or killed, or someone in your family is going to take that gun and go somewhere else and hurt and kill someone and end up in jail for the rest of their lives. And so gun safety rules are important to bring to the community, as well as to continue to fight for safety laws, such as the removal of guns from people who have criminal backgrounds, who have hurt and injured people in domestic violence incidents, banning assault weapons, as well as the safe storage. I also think that we have to encourage the faith-based community to really get out there and be more involved and not be so sequestered within the buildings, within the temples, within the mosques, within the churches, and kind of stand on their faith, if they will, if you will, and be bold in inviting people into the faith community. I think we also have to try to bring healing types of arts to people who have less than, teaching artwork, teaching dance, not just the music itself, but exposing them to other forms of activities that can bring peace and calm and reduce the anxiety and the anger and the distress that they're feeling. So who could we get to teach dance classes and to teach yoga classes and to teach meditation classes? Can we get, for example, a church in a particular community to have that type of program that's taught on a weekly basis? And then those teams that are out there in the street, like Dr. Patterson's team, can say, on Saturdays at 3 o'clock, you can go and dance, and you can learn ballet, or you can learn modern dance, and you can learn something that could perhaps become a career for you. So that's mostly what I wanted to say in terms of solutions. And then, of course, the idea of economic solutions, because if we don't give people resources and opportunities to work and to make income and be able to pay for medical care and be able to pay for their housing and cleanliness and decent food and get away from eating unhealthy foods and living in toxic environments, smoking too much and drinking too much and so forth. They have to have economic resources. Can we begin to build small business training classes? Can we bring trades back to the schools? Carpentry, bricklaying, all of those sorts of things that used to be taught to people where they could make an excellent living and repair homes in their own community and make a tremendous difference. And one of the things we thought about doing was tying veterans who have recovered from post-traumatic stress with some of these more violent and angry youth. Why? Because the veterans are not going to be afraid of them. The veterans can talk with them heart to heart about their anger and say, hey, I was angry after experiencing combat. This is how I've coped. You're angry after experiencing the trauma of your childhood. Let's turn that anger into something resourceful and build a business together. Bakeries, small grocery stores, all sorts of things can be done within our community that we used to do years ago, that sometimes got taken away from us and got destroyed, but we can rebuild within our own communities rather than relying on the government to come in and help us with that. So I will end there, and I will end with the notion that we have to remember that it is poverty, lack of resources, lack of education, and lack of health care that breeds violence, not race, not ethnicity, and we have to keep bringing that challenge back to the people who are suffering the most and encourage them that there are people who care about them and want to assist them in rising above, just the way that we have. By the way, I grew up in New York City in the Bronx. My older brother, who I am very proud of, was a heroin addict for over 20 years. And he, through years of applying himself and going through treatment, he's now been clean and sober for over 25 years. I tell people all the time, he's the one that kept me safe in the Bronx. He's the one that kept me away from drugs and helped me to get out of the neighborhood that I was in and go to college and go to medical school and have the level of education that I have. And so within families, you can see this kind of divergence of people going one way and another part of the family going another way. And we have to encourage one another to go and reach out for those other members of the family and support them and help them in their recovery. So I'll stop there. Thank you all. It was good listening to you and being a part of this conversation.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's everybody give her a hand, please. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've learned a whole lot today. I know I've learned a lot more than I did before we started. And that's what's good about this forum, was that we learn. And the old African proverb, he who learns teaches, right? So we have to go out and be ambassadors, like Dr. Orton said. We have to go out there and be ambassadors as well at some point in time. Before we open up the floor, let me make a quick statement and a question. I got a question too. When I was still working for the federal government, I was on my way to work. This must have been year 19, could have been 1999, 1998. I don't know what year it was. But I was riding to work and I saw a white man being arrested on Rhode Island Avenue, right there at First Street, Northwest. And he was kneeled on the ground and he was handcuffed by the park police. And I said to myself, damn, I have never seen that in my life in DC, seeing a white man getting arrested like that, you know? So I was wondering, so the next day I looked in the newspaper and they had an article about that arrest, that this man, I forgot his age, but he looked like he might have been in his 40s or 50s or whatever. He was arrested for selling guns
Yes.
to teenagers, to this teenage boy. I think he was 16 years old. He was arrested for selling these guns. And they had and I didn't hear much about it after that, but I'm always wondering, and I know our community, we don't bring them in the country, but where are these guns coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Like Kakai said, it seems like they just flooded this community. I would say around 2000 and 2005, and I mean, you can see. I don't know, but who can tell us right now where are these guns coming from in these cities? Not just in DC, but I mean, you got guns in Baltimore, Detroit, Atlanta, but
In the ABC News special, and I'm looking for the title of it so you guys can look it up. Gun Violence in American Epidemic. That's ABC News 2019. They talked about the gun manufacturers in America making a $63 billion profit. And what happens is they manufacture guns, but they don't monitor what happens to those guns once they go out to gun stores all over the country. I had one friend tell me that there's a massive amount of gun stores, primarily in the southern parts of the country, but they're expanding because they're so profitable. And you hear about these gun stores whenever there's a mass killing, right? And they talk about where did the gun come from and where did this gun come from that, you know, this poor young man used against Donald Trump and so forth. But they are not carefully monitoring these gun shops. Gun shops, people are stealing the guns. They're changing the serial codes. I understand that the I-95 corridor is a huge gun transport system. People bring up a load of guns, open up the trunk of their car and sell them right out on the street. And why can't that be addressed by law enforcement? Why can't that be something that the community brings to the law enforcement community and says, this is a community policing issue? Not only do you need to be in the community and get to know the community and not just come in a reactionary way, but come to protect the community and come to save us from these things that are infiltrating the community. And guns is one of them. And it is clearly the interface between a white industry that is entering into the Black community and other communities as well. And I just want to add to that. The white community is also suffering from this. It's just that you'll see when you read these various reports, even I took issue with the Surgeon General's report. He highlighted that, yes, there are more killings in the African-American community. But what they're not highlighting is there's also a significant number of killings in the white community. If you compare the rate of white violent crime in America to whites in other countries such as Australia and Europe. They
Oh
have
man.
much lower rate of violence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Guns.
Yeah, bro.
So
And let me,
violence is really, and I'm sure you all know this, that it's become the number one cause of death for children in the United States of America between the ages of 1 and 19 is firearms. It's now surpassed all other illnesses, car accidents, and it's now the number one killer of all children in the United States of America. But of course, Black children have a significant number in percentage in that. And yet.
Right. Yeah, also, I want to mention yesterday, some of the organizations that are out there on the front lines doing a lot of the work that I haven't worked directly. I've been working with some of them indirectly. Like Kaya mentioned, Ceasefire Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters, Al Malik Farrakhan, Alliance of Concerned Men, Tia Bell Trigger Project, No Slide Zone, and there's some young sisters out here, man, called Harriet's Wildest Dreams. I don't know if y'all familiar with these sisters, man, but they some serious young sisters, man. And there's others. And the city, let me say this too, the city has a lot of projects and resources for the people that live in this city. People need to know how to navigate and know how to find this information. You can call 311 and they will get you started as far as where you can go and get connected. But there's a lot of resources available to them. I went up to Malcolm X Park. They had what they call it, a summit on nonviolence. I had left for funeral and went up there, and I was extremely disappointed in the turnout. There was no one there. I mean, they had one table. I thought I was going to go up there and talk to different groups that have tables set up with their information and all that. There was only one table set up, and that table was the city. And the city, I picked up a lot of information about what the city is offering for mainly returning citizens, but they call it a summit, and I'm looking for mass people. We went up there and no one was there. I was taken aback by that.
Bob, I wanted to address the question that you put out, and also chime in on what Dr. Orden said.
Yes, please.
You asked the question, where are the guns coming from?
Uh-huh.
And that's an important question. So we shouldn't rush past that. In addition to what Dr. Orden said, we should know that there are more people, that there are more guns in America than there are people.
Exactly.
There are more guns. There are more
guns.
guns in America than there are people.
Yes.
Good gracious.
So we are literally in an ocean of guns. You don't have to ask where the guns are coming from. They're coming from everywhere. There are more guns in circulation right now in the United States than there are human beings walking around in the United States. And an interesting thing I've always found regarding law enforcement, because you would think, considering that they're supposed to be the front lines in dealing with criminals who have guns, that they would be more concerned about the proliferation of guns.
But they don't.
But in reality, law enforcement are far more likely to support politicians who get the primary bulk of their funding from gun manufacturers. So you would think that people who are supposed to be, the front line, who are you would expect to be more in danger of being shot by these guns, especially these semi-automatic and automatic weapons with the bump stocks, the basically automatic weapons, that they would be more inclined to be for gun restrictions, but they are actually more in support of politicians who are against gun restrictions. So you have to ask yourself, why do the police support the proliferation of guns in the community? And when you ask yourself that question and you recognize it's a national phenomenon. I mean, it's pretty much police and you know the NRA and the parties they support are hand in hand. You have to, and then you understand that it's a system. The guns are out there because they want the guns out there. And in America, anybody who wants a gun can get a gun because they're literally everywhere. Whether we're aware of it or not, we're in an ocean of guns. It's not just comparing. Dr. Orden was talking about the comparison of violence between white people in America and white people in the rest of the world. Compare black people in America and black people in the rest of the world. You know, we don't have that same level of violence in other places because one, the guns, you know, obviously, at least gun violence. I mean to say, is not the guns are not so available. Literally, anybody who wants one. You know, you combine, you know, the guns with the socioeconomic situation and the poverty that goes along with it. You know, it's a recipe for what we see, what we actually perceive. So we have to be clear on the fact that things are happening not as a failure, but as a design.
Exactly.
Things are happening the way they are designed to happen.
Exactly.
What we have to do with is how do we address the design? How do we hold people accountable who maintain the design, who maintain the system, from the politicians to the law enforcement? Because if white people you know were you know if white people were aware of, you know, I mean, I guess they should be aware, but the propaganda gets put out that it's black people getting shot, black people with guns, whatever. I think if white people in America were actually aware of how much gun violence is actually devastating their communities, and they're not being shown as boogeyman, they might be more interested in asking these questions, because there is absolutely no reason, you know, for the resistance that you get from politicians who are elected by people who are being shot by guns
You
to be
would think.
so. I mean, you know, except, you know, of course, it's the source of money, and we need to stop. We need to stop and resist when people try to portray the National Rifle Association as a pro gun owner association. They are a gun manufacturers association. Their members don't pay the dues that keep them going. It's the gun manufacturers, and they're one of the biggest lobbying groups in Congress. And most of these Congress people, some of whom are also, you know, wearing a D on their lapel, get a lot of money from them. And if they weren't getting money from the NRA, they wouldn't be in office. So you know, we need to change the conversation and stop, you know, allowing the propaganda, because, you know, they clearly don't care about our children dying in these streets because we're not bringing the guns in. The guns, I mean, if you've been in any major city, you probably heard a story of once or twice, and I've heard multiple instances where people just find duffel bags of guns on a subway or on a street corner. So I mean, it just shows up, and you know, somebody grabs it and sells it there. So we're flooded with it. So that's where it comes from, everywhere.
Yeah. That you said something that and Dr. Orton alluded to, and y'all actually kind of alluding to. The thing is that the fuel is the money situation. They're being the NRA is funding, and it's the money ends up being the main ingredient of what slows down any of those controls. Is that all that money that's involved, and the politicians take the money NRA gives the money, other organizations, like you said, the manufacturers are selling, and as long as the money game is the game, it's like it's really hurting us, because of that money that's involved, and it's a lot of money. So anyway,
And if you think of the hypocrisy of what's happening right now in the aftermath of a young man, Thomas Creeks, shooting Donald Trump. He has an AR-15. He has a drone. And they're saying, how could this happen? Talking about gun control. They're not talking about, oh my God, look how bad this has gotten. They're saying, oh, it's a terrible thing that the former president almost was assassinated. But no one has touched on the fact that the Supreme Court just gave permission for Americans to have bump stocks. If that young man had had a bump stock on his gun, he could have killed everybody on that platform. They're lucky that he didn't have that. And what we're not looking at is we've got a 20-year-old. We've raised a whole generation, maybe 2 generations of young people with the belief that the gun is the solution to their problem, that violence is the solution to the problem. And that's also registered through movies, from Hollywood, these violent video games that the kids are involved in, as well as what's going on in the street. They're being given violent messages day in and day out all the time. And even if they have parents who are hardworking and are just not paying attention and not taking the time with their kids, you can end up with a kid like this young man. He just decided in his mind, the only way to solve this problem, I'm going to take the dude out myself. And they keep talking about what was his motivation. We know what his motivation was, but nobody is addressing the fact that if that's what a 20-year-old is thinking, that the only way we can resolve a problem is to kill it.
What was his motivation? I'm sorry. What was his motivation? Because they said that his father, and I think he was a registered Republican.
He was. He was. Yeah.
I'm sorry, forgive me. My personal opinion, his motivation was to kill Donald Trump. That's what
if I could just jump in for 1 minute, and kind of let you back on some of the things. They asked the question of how the guns are getting in. I want to step back to that for 1 minute. We know how they get. White folk, crackers, white folk, let's go straight shot. Crackers, white folk. We don't own gun factories. We don't own gun shops. There's a few black folk that own some, down south, but you can count them on one hand in terms of how many gun shops and stuff are owned by black people. But be clear, when you say everybody's getting them, the white folk bring them in and they give them to the drug dealers. I used to sell guns when I was a kid. I got 5 or 6 guns one time and sold them. So now, in the last, I'd say 2 years, I've witnessed gun stocks of gangs, places I've gone, and they say, Kakai, come on and let me show you something. And they have a whole room full of guns, automatic rifles, automatic weapons, ARs, M16s, 357 Magnums, Glocks, German Lugers, you name it. They have a stash of at least, on minimum, 10 guns. 5 handguns and 5 automatic rifles. Some of them with sights on them. Some of them got silencers, etc. These are the things that I've seen, with my own eyes in about 10 different situations right here in DC with guys that I know are running the streets and say, hey, Doc, you talking about street code. Let me show you how we're going to deal with the street code. And then I talk to them. I say, man, what are y'all doing with this? Blam, blam, blam. Man, we got to defend ourselves. This is why we got to get to as many people as we can, because it's a black hole, y'all. This thing is so deep that you got 15-year-olds with a stash like that. 15-year-old kids with a trunk full of guns. One of my mentees, who's no longer with me, who was a part of M13, MS-13, and we tried so hard to pull him out of it, but in the process of us pulling him out of it, he got pulled over because his little brother was in an argument or something. He got pulled over. The cop opened the gun, he got like 10 ghost guns in there. He had 10 ghost guns in there, you know. So of course he didn't want to say nothing to me, but I found out from his father, you know, he's in jail, you know. Hopefully we'll get him out and he'll change up. But we work with a lot of gang members who just can't seem to get away from it. They're kind of locked into it, and they have to carry guns, you know, with them. I'm with cats sometimes, I don't even know they got guns, you know, and I look, hey, you come on, doc, you know we packing, you know. But this, like you said, is almost the norm now. There's more guns than people. You know what I'm saying? There's more guns than people, and you would be scared of a gun. These young people have no fear unconsciously, because if they was conscious, they'd have fear. But unconsciously, they have no fear. You know, so they run around having shootouts like at the OK Corral, literally having shootouts like this in the street. And these are the young people that we're talking about. Like we all said, and like Doctor said, we have to formulate a movement where we go down into that hole. You know, we just can't be on the surface. We got to go down into that hole. And the best way to do it is to work, as Doc said, with the groups that are doing it. As you said, Imamu, and that's Kalechi and everybody was saying, work with the groups that are actually out there doing Alliance of Concerned Men, African Holy Scout Association, Ceasefire Don't Smoke for Brothers and Sisters. There's a group called One Flag. They go on the Project's feed, you know, and talk to the gangs and stuff like that. You know, you have
One Flag
brothers, so many of them out there. So if you all, and I'll give my information to Imamu, we can get it out to everybody. And this one last thing, there's a meeting every Wednesday at the Nation of Islam Temple at Pennsylvania Avenue and Branch Avenue, you know, NOI. And they have a meeting. We meet there. It's called Cruise, CREW. And the Cruise meeting is of all of these groups that I'm talking about. And they're coming together, meeting, working on getting facilities, programs, drug treatment opportunities, and things like that, like Doc was talking about. And they're soliciting the government and all those funding agencies, etc. Whereas my organization, you already know, we're very, very radical, we're very, very hardcore, and we don't want anybody to determine what we do. So when we get our funds come through other means, private sources. And if we do a government contract, we're going to make sure they can't tell us what to do and what to say. They can't tell us not to talk about Malcolm X when we talk to these children. They can't tell us not to talk about the 9 points that Dr. Welsing. We can't have them stop us talking about Addicted to White by Dr. Jerome Fox, where he talks about the 5 white values. Those are the things that I go in and talk about, you know, so we have to be able to do it on our own without anybody stopping us and saying that you all are too radical going into these places, and we know how that goes.
Can I ask
Dr. Kakai,
yes,
you mentioned ghost guns, and there's evidence that points to the fact that these ghost guns, you can get the kits, you can get the parts, and put these guns because they have no markings.
That's right.
So they said since 2016 to 2021, the sales of these ghost guns have increased 1,000%.
That's right.
1,000%, and they have had a tremendous effect on the availability of guns in our community, the proliferation of guns.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's a serious issue.
Yeah, very serious.
And so we have to look at that as a source of where these guns are coming from. So these ghost guns, proliferation of them in our community.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Barbara. That's important for everybody to know. That again, a ghost gun is a gun that comes in parts. No serial numbers, no registration. It cannot be traced back anywhere.
You get the parts online even.
You can build them. You can make them.
Yeah, you make
you get the parts online.
Yeah, you know,
guns together.
This brother had
be traced. Right.
He had 10 of them, you know, in this car. So
let me ask a question based on a couple of years ago, I was involved with a group of people that were talking to right-wing conspirators who were talking about bringing guns and drugs into Chicago, New York, and other places. They said that's all they had to do. This one individual was complaining because they were losing money because so many people are starting to make their own ghost guns. Make their own ghost guns, yes. Now, my question is, with all the organizations that we have, or that we just talked about, are there any that are obtaining and retaining information on any organization that might be hazardous to the advancement of Black people in terms of violence.
That
Is
may
any-
be
What was that question again, honey?
Is there any organization, now I know besides the Brene Britt, they're doing it, that might be collecting and retaining information on any organization or group that might be hazardous to the advancement of Black people in terms of violence and making guns, bringing up guns. So this fella, he was a part of a right-wing organization, bringing in guns into Chicago, truckloads.
Trainloads, yeah.
Good
Yes.
gracious,
poverty. The Southern Poverty
Law Center.
Center.
Law
Law
Center,
Center.
they track right-wing groups that are violent.
Good.
If that's what you're talking about.
Yes, because these are the people that were bringing in those guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were bringing in, and drugs, because they figure if you're doped up and you shooting each other, you're solving their problems, getting rid of each other. And
Well,
this dude was,
that's what it said. The letter from the Klan on the code at the end of the code. Kakai has mentioned that what you just said, Arnie. Yeah. Dakari, you had asked yesterday if you could share a few words. Anything you'd like to share before we
Sure.
Close out?
Okay. Another part of our program that we've been and we're going to be increasing our I guess our momentum on, because we've been working with brother Abdus Munir. We at Savin, we came up with the idea of also going to where the youth are at. We know they're on the streets, but the youth are also on social media very extensively. They spend a lot of time on social media. So another one of our attacks or targets or approaches is to produce vignettes and other types of you would call it targets of a message where we could influence and put our spin in on some anti-violence stuff through social media. A lot of the sites, y'all might be familiar with TikTok. I'm on TikTok, so I see a lot of stuff. I go on the lives and stuff. But a lot of the youth are, they learn how to carjack on TikTok. I mean, just like we're talking now, they do trainings or how you could carjack people, how you jack people, and do other things right on these social media sites. So, one of our targets is to, have a presence there on those social media sites and inject our stuff, what we want, even if, like I say, even if it's in our skits or in our messaging or whatever, because we may be able to make some inroads there, because that's where a lot of them are. When you don't see them on the street, they're on their phones and they're on social media. So that's
With
another
positive
one of the things
influence.
that we're going to be that we're doing. The brother just got a new studio. He's located in Oxon Hill now. We filmed this was Dr. Orton, Hanif, a couple of our other members. We had filmed I guess it would be more like an interview setting. And Munir had a lot of videos that had been shooting, and a lot of the stuff is interesting. He dealt with a lot of stuff with domestic violence. There were other things, so it's different, attacking different areas and just injecting those things into those areas. So, and we want to invite everybody on this call to be actors, if you don't mind, because we're always looking for people to act in these skits or role plays or whatever. So everybody on here, we may give you a holler and say, do y'all want to be in this particular production that we're doing? We had one where we're using the umbrella versus like somebody Hanif could maybe extend a little bit more, or Dr. Orton. But anyway, the idea was that the person was at the bus stop and the situation was getting ready to get tense and get violent. And it looks like the person is going for a gun, and instead of them pulling out a gun, he pulls out an umbrella. And the umbrella opens up and it says, stop the violence, or this is not necessary. We can do something else. So that's another one of our approaches that we want to increase on, because we do know that they are there on the social media. So I just want to let y'all know that stuff is in motion too.
Another thing, real quick, Dakai, on that scenes that you're doing, you know, Mama Sala had that picture on their building, right? With the sister, looked like she got a gun. She posing like she got a gun, right? A rifle.
Okay.
But it was really a pen.
Okay.
You remember that?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Go by there and take a picture of that, and that'll create a lot of discussion. You see what I mean? Because everybody see it, they think, why is she promoting this sister with an afro and militant looking with a rifle, man? But it was really a gun. The artist, a brother from Nigeria, he put that up for them years ago. Okay. But it'd be a good little backdrop for what you're doing, man. And also Sunday coming at Thurgood Marshall, we'll be at Thurgood Marshall, and we'll be discussing a lot of things that we're talking about today from 3:30 to 6:30 at Thurgood Marshall. And I'll be kind of discussing some of the results of this particular session tonight with the community. And I'm going to type up a lot of this information and try to get it out to somewhere. But that's what we're doing Sunday at 3:30. Now, where's the other young brother that we met at the festival? He said he'd be on with us tonight. I forgot his name. The brother from, the tall young man from Nigeria, Kaleshi. What's his name? He called me today.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he said he'd be on tonight. He said he wanted to share also, and he's doing a lot of work as well. And they also have a program at Bus Boys on the 1st of this month, 1st of August. And to be honest, I got tons of emails about it, but I haven't opened them up because I've been extremely tied down and got sick recently, and I'm still recovering, but lot going on. But we got to tie in the knots, tie in, all the organizations, and try to like LC Pan is structured. Those groups that I just mentioned, they don't have a structure like LC Pan.
If I can throw out something, Imamu.
What was that?
But I gotta break up out of here. But let me just invite everyone out tomorrow to the corners of 7th and T Street. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. We'll be setting up right there doing free treatment, and we just want to invite everybody out on tomorrow. We do that every Saturday from 12 to 2 p.m. We do free treatment. So you guys come on out. I got to run and go take care of some other stuff in the hood right now.
Yes.
I appreciate all of you all, and I appreciate all of you all support. Street code, is important. Get it out to as many people as possible. I love all of y'all. Straight ahead. Free the land.
Thank you.
Free the land, good brother. Yes.
Give me a call, Kakai.
Yes.
Give me a call, Kakai. Sounds about it.
Yeah. And real quick, on speaking of young people and these guns, Google Trigger Project, Tia Bell Trigger Project, and they have some statements that these young folks make dealing with these guns, 11, 10, 11, 12, 14 years old. Man, I said, man, that's unbelievable. These statements that they made about these guns makes them feel good, makes them feel happy, makes them feel safe. They said, one of them said, look, I use mine first because he might use his first. You know what I mean? So it's man, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, we can't forget that young people's brains are not fully developed, you know, before the age of between 25 and 29. And their concept of death is they don't fully understand the meaning of death, that it's final. They feel invincible. They feel like it can't be me. And so they go out there, and if you get killed, you're dead. You don't know it. If you kill someone, you're going to jail, and you're going to spend, if you're Black, an extensive amount of time in jail. And that becomes the culture. So getting people to understand the meaning and the finality of those types of behavior. But packing a gun, and it makes you feel strong. It takes away the fear. It takes away the sense of impotence or feeling like you're not confident, or the low self-esteem. And we know in the African-American community, we have to constantly work on self-esteem and the self-hatred that we just seem to hold on to about skin color and hair, all of that sort of stuff. And people that try to go to school and do well are told, oh, you're trying to act white and all that nonsense.
Oh, man.
I think that battle, I fought that battle in the 70s and 80s in college, and I can't believe that my nieces and nephews are experiencing the same thing now, because you speak well or because you're trying to go to college, that somehow you're trying to be white, or you're somehow betraying the community. We have got to put a stop to all of that. How that's been going on for 50 years now.
Well, that debate went on with Booker T and
exactly long in
and W.B. Du Bois,
Yeah, exactly.
But either way, either of those paths at least led to some success. Either of them.
Have both. How you gonna have like a situation where you don't have both? I mean, you got a building, you got a school. Who's gonna take care of the school? Who's gonna put the lights up and take care of the air conditioning? Hello.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I look back, and I worked my way through college as a janitor. Sometimes I wish I had started a janitorial business. I might be a multi-millionaire instead of being a physician, the government physician, making no money. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been very interesting, and
yes. And we'll definitely be working with your group and others on this. A lot of things going on. So looking forward to it.
Work on your acting skills, because I will be calling.
Yeah, we're going to do skits, and we're going to do podcasts, and we're going to interview different people's programs, and then put it on the website so people can look at the leaders of these programs and say, oh, I remember that face, and I'll go talk to that.
We'll put our program on there with the trades, the school put that on there. Yeah,
definitely. You got to send me that information so we can put it on the website.
Okay, I forgot to do that, but I'll get it to you.
One of our other team members just sent me a text message. He was on the call. He said it was very fascinating.
Great. And Baba Kuma, if I could announce one of our upcoming programs in September, we're going to have our 20th annual Love Supreme tribute to John Coltrane.
Yes.
Poetic birthday tribute out at E-Life Vegan Cafe out at 9033 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights, Maryland, starting at 7 p.m. And this year we're going to be featuring the great NASA Aberde Quartet. And we're going to have Mama Kichi Taifa doing poetry and talk about reparations. We're also going to honor some of our esteemed ancestors who passed recently, like Dr. Nathan Hare. He passed a couple of weeks ago. Dr. Bernice Johnson Reagan. musicians like Les McCann, Richard Davis, Carlos Garnett, and Dylan Kane, who was one of the founders of the Last Poets. And we're going to also acknowledge Dory Ladner and Dexter King, son of Martin Luther King. So we'd like to invite all of you to come out on the 20th of September. It's Friday, the 20th of September at 7 p.m. at the E-Life Restaurant, 9033 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights, Maryland. And tickets can be purchased at Simbeb Cafe, Everlasting Life, Simbeb Cafe, and Sankofa Bookstore. So
You have any flyers?
They'll be in the community in the next week or so.
You have any flyers on that, Ruffy?
They'll be out in about a week.
Okay.
Flyers.
Yeah. Let me say something.
Working on that flower right now.
And also, let me say this real quick too. Some of the people that sent their surveys in, I wanted to read a couple things that they say before we go. This come from my lovely wife, and this is what she recommended for the young men, the young boys: career and job training, value systems, health and wellness, character building, conflict resolutions, parenting skills, personal finances. And another friend sent in, he said these things should be taught in school. Conflict resolution. And he also spoke of poverty. This is Baba Iapo down in Atlanta. He's a surgeon. And another young man wrote that we need father figures in the house and cultural awakening and belong to positive organizations. This is what some of the things, the results of some of the survey that was turned in on the things that we talked about tonight. So any other closing remarks before we go?
I said we're all in agreement, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the things that that wasn't brought out. Dr. Orton started a program where we every month put out a special word, you know, positive wordage. My mind is crazy now. I can't remember them, but I do know that I think it's important for us to start reaffirming certain words, positive words, words of love and friendship and respect and responsibility, words that are going to encourage us to do positive things instead of negative things.
What about proverbs, positive proverbs?
There you go.
I got plenty proverbs to share.
Our first one, actually, I'm looking through my book to see if I can find one of them, but I have them in different places. But yeah, we were using Proverbs as one of our first ones. I'll find it once we get off the call.
Oh, that's the way it go. I know.
Yes. There's one that Hanif uses all the time, that the things that we should be ashamed of, we're proud of, but that's not how it goes. It sounds better than that. And I find it in my little book here.
We are proud of things we should be ashamed of.
Yes, we are proud of things we should be ashamed of.
Yeah.
That was
no shame. One. No shame, no game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so look, we thank you again for participating, those online and those that did share in the discussion tonight. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. And we're gonna have to do this again, y'all, because we had a good time. So any other remarks? If not, then Glacier, you want to close us out there, good brother?
Yebo. Yeah, so let me thank everyone for joining in. This is an important discussion. This is important information that unfortunately we don't deal with. And when I say we, I'm really speaking of the Pan-African community, the Black nationalist community. You know, we because of our orientation, I believe, because of our perspective, especially, you know, when we're early on and coming into consciousness, we won't accept certain types of existence, and we, you know, are motivated and more than others who don't have that perspective in some ways to make sure that our quality of life is a certain way. But unfortunately, we don't bring the rest of our community along with us. I'm not going to say the Pan-Africanist nationalist community is middle class. It's more apt to be, right? So with some in some ways, you know, we tend to be the more educated because we appreciate the importance of knowledge. Um, but it also removes us from the masses of our people. And on this issue, we definitely are removed, and we don't address it, but we probably collectively have the greatest power to change it.
Yes.
But we don't, because we don't. If you're not in the streets, they don't see you. You know, if you're not present, you can't really help. That's why it's really important the work that Dr. Kakai does and others like Brother Ali and, you know, so many others who are involved in on the ground, literally on the ground. I'm very familiar with that MLK uh, Malcolm X corner. Ironic that's the corner. I'm you know,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm a big fan.
Weren't you with us when we used to go to when
Dibbo,
NBUF was doing the Feed the
Dibbo,
Hood? We were all doing
Dibbo,
that.
Dibbo.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
you know, I don't know where the Jurassic Park name came from. It's sort of
I know. That's kind of strange.
but you know, yeah, that if you so it's good that we're having this discussion and exchange, and I see some collaborations coming together from it, and this is why we're here. This is why we do this. This is why United Black Community has these forums to address
Yes.
issues that aren't
Oh,
getting addressed enough in our community. And really thank everyone for coming through. Definitely look out for the flyers for the co-train program, which is going to be in September. And you know,
Founders Day, Bob.
say it again.
Appeals
Oh yeah,
Founders
bro.
Day.
Yes. Well, there's a lot. Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time. So you know, there's a lot. I wear a lot of hats, and one of the hats I wear is Executive Director of Appeal Incorporated. Tomorrow, we actually have illustrious sister Sister Marimba Ani will be speaking. This is on Zoom, so we have a presentation with her yesterday. Tomorrow, speaking at 2 p.m. And you know, and she'll be addressing a lot of her experience, you know, going as far back as Fandu Hamer, you know, her trip to and interactions with President Sekou Touré, and obviously she's a wealth of knowledge. She's a history, well, she's a library herself. Aside from obviously her very important books that she's given us. So she'll be speaking tomorrow. You can go to appealinc.org and events and sign up for that. And there's a myriad of things going on. Every week we're going to have a workshop, our historical cultural literacy workshop, usually on Saturday mornings. And we have our Founders Day coming up at the end of September. So don't take too much time on that, but you can go to appealinc.org and find out what's going on. There's always some positive. You know, we one of the reasons why we have a focus on elevating the financial literacy status awareness of our communities, because we understand that their violence is not always as it appears, in the sense that we know that it's all interconnected, and the connection between violence and poverty is real. And if we're going to elevate our people out of violence, we have to elevate them out of poverty. And
Yes.
and we have the power to give them the tools and make the tools available and support institutions that lead to that elevation, right? That's why Appeal is focused so much, you know, in part on elevating the financial status of our people. It's not because of money. It's about because we want to end the violence. you know, the economic violence is devastating because that's generational. So that's why we do what we do. But, you know, but you can go to appealing.org and see all the stuff that's going on. But thank you all for coming through, and thank you all for everybody who shared. Dr. Orton, you're phenomenal. Thank you so much for everything that you share with us, and all the speakers tonight. You know, it was an important night. This is going to be on YouTube. This is on YouTube right now. It's live streaming on YouTube, so folks are going to be seeing it. Even if they didn't see it tonight, they're going to see it later. It's also on Facebook, so it'll get a few more eyes on it as time goes on. Everyone have a good evening. And Baba and Mamu, thank you so much for doing a wonderful job putting it together and, you know, of course, hosting this evening. And we'll see everybody.
Look out for this. Look, I'll be posting this, so everybody look out. This is our August 17th program.
Yeah, bro.
I passed a few of these out at the LC Pan event.
Yeah, bro. Sounds good, Baba.
All right.
Okay. If you're in Thurgood Marshall area, bring some on Sunday.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, 3:30.
Drop. You can come by the co-op and drop some off for Everlasting Life. You know the spots.
Oh yeah, I'm always at Eli.
Yeah, bro. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you all for coming.
Good night.
Right.
Santi San.
Peace and blessings.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.